This is the story of Theo van Gogh, a man whose life was brutally cut short by someone who believed he was acting in defense of his faith. At the heart of the tragic story of Theo van Gogh lies a profound misinterpretation of a sacred text. The verse in question comes from the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 191. It reads, "And kill them wherever you overtake them, and expel them from wherever they have expelled you, and fitna is worse than killing." Verse 191 specifically refers to a period when Muslims were being persecuted in Mecca. In the case of Mohammed Bouyeri, the man who murdered Theo van Gogh, this verse was twisted into a justification for murder. Theo van Gogh was born on July 23, 1957, in The Hague, Netherlands. Carrying the weight of his famous name, being a distant relative of the renowned painter Vincent van Gogh, Theo carved his own path, not in the world of art, but in the realm of film and media. He was a man who thrived on provocation, unafraid to confront societal norms and challenge deeply held beliefs. His work often sparked controversy, but it was precisely this that made him a prominent figure in Dutch culture. Van Gogh's career as a filmmaker, television producer, and writer was marked by his unapologetic approach to sensitive subjects. He was a staunch advocate for free speech, believing that no topic, including religion, should be off limits. His films and writings often delved into taboo areas, critiquing not just Islam, but also Christianity, Judaism, and Dutch society at large. His sharp, often biting commentary earned him both admirers and detractors. One of his most controversial works was the short film Submission, 2004, a collaboration with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, a Somali-born Dutch politician and activist. The film depicted a Muslim woman, her body marked with Quranic verses, recounting her suffering and oppression. The visual imagery, combined with its critique of Islamic practices, was seen by many as a direct assault on Islam itself. Van Gogh's intent was to spark debate, to challenge what he saw as the oppressive aspects of religion. But in doing so, he crossed a line for many in the Muslim community, who viewed the film as blasphemous and deeply offensive. Van Gogh's relentless pursuit of free expression, coupled with his disdain for political correctness, made him a target for those who felt that their faith had been insulted. He received numerous death threats following the release of Submission, but true to his nature, he dismissed them with characteristic bravado. He believed in the inviolability of free speech and was unwilling to back down, even in the face of growing danger. This defiance would ultimately cost him his life. On the other side of this tragic story is Mohammed Bouyeri, a Dutch-Moroccan man born in Amsterdam on March 8, 1978. Bouyeri's early life was marked by the challenges typical of second-generation immigrants, struggling with identity, belonging, and the clash between his parents' Moroccan culture and the secular liberal values of Dutch society. In his youth, Bouyeri was not particularly religious. He was known to be an average student, and like many young men in his community, he grappled with issues of identity and direction. He was involved in social work, focusing on the challenges faced by immigrant youth in Amsterdam. But his life took a drastic turn after the death of his mother in 2002, an event that left him emotionally adrift. In the wake of this personal loss, Bouyeri began to seek solace in religion. However, instead of finding peace, he was drawn into the world of radical Islam. He started attending meetings of the Hofstad Network, a loose group of Islamist extremists in the Netherlands. This group fed off the frustrations and alienation felt by young Muslims like Bouyeri, promoting a narrative of victimhood and resistance against Western society. Bouyeri became increasingly radicalized, influenced by extremist ideologies that painted the world in black and white, believers versus infidels, Islam versus the West. He began to see himself as a soldier in a holy war, tasked with defending Islam from its perceived enemies. The release of Theo van Gogh's film Submission was a tipping point for Bouyeri. He saw the film as a direct attack on his faith, a blasphemy that could not go unpunished. The anger and resentment that had been building within him found a focus in Van Gogh. In his mind, killing Van Gogh was not just an act of revenge. It was a religious duty, a way to defend Islam from those who insulted it. In the months leading up to the murder, Bouyeri meticulously planned his attack. He wrote a manifesto filled with religious rhetoric, justifying violence against those who, in his view, waged war against Islam. On November 2, 2004, he put his plan into action, believing that he was fulfilling a divine command. His path to radicalization had reached its tragic conclusion, with the murder of Theo van Gogh serving as both an act of violence and a statement of his distorted beliefs. The murder of Theo van Gogh on November 2, 2004, was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was a meticulously planned assassination, born out of deep-seated anger and a twisted sense of religious duty. To understand the gravity of this crime, we must first look at the events that led up to that fateful day. In the months following the release of his controversial film Submission, Theo van Gogh found himself at the center of a storm of outrage. The film, which critiqued the treatment of women in Islamic societies, was seen by many Muslims as an unforgivable insult to their faith. Van Gogh, however, was unrepentant. He continued to defend his right to free expression, dismissing the numerous death threats he received as the cost of speaking his mind. But while Van Gogh remained defiant, one man was quietly plotting his revenge. Mohamed Bouyeri, a young Dutch Moroccan radicalized by extremist ideologies, had become obsessed with the idea of avenging what he saw as an attack on Islam. To Bouyeri, Van Gogh was more than just a filmmaker. He was an enemy of the faith, a blasphemer who had to be punished. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Bouyeri prepared himself both mentally and physically. He wrote a manifesto, a chilling document filled with religious rhetoric and justifications for violence. He acquired weapons, a pistol and 2 knives, and began to shadow Van Gogh, learning his routines and identifying the perfect moment to strike. The morning of November 2nd, 2004 began like any other for Theo van Gogh. He left his home and set off on his bicycle, following his usual route through the streets of Amsterdam. But unbeknownst to him, Bouyeri was waiting. He had positioned himself along Van Gogh's route, ready to carry out his deadly mission. As Van Gogh cycled down Linnaeusstraat, Bouyeri approached him from behind. Without warning, he pulled out his pistol and fired the first shot. The bullet struck Van Gogh, causing him to fall from his bike. Dazed and wounded, Van Gogh attempted to crawl away, desperately trying to reach safety. But Bouyeri was relentless. He closed the distance between them and continued firing, each shot delivered with chilling precision. Van Gogh was hit multiple times, his body collapsing onto the cold pavement. But the horror did not end there. As Van Gogh lay dying, Bouyeri pulled out one of the knives he had brought with him. In a gruesome act of brutality, he attempted to decapitate Van Gogh, slashing at his throat with a frenzied determination. This act was not just an expression of rage, it was a symbolic gesture, intended to send a clear message to those who might challenge or insult Islam. With Van Gogh's lifeless body lying on the ground, Bouyeri took the second knife and used it to pin a 5-page letter to Van Gogh's chest. The letter, addressed to Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the co-creator of Submission, was a manifesto of hatred and violence. In it, Bouyeri justified his actions as a defense of Islam and warned that more blood would be shed if the perceived attacks on the faith continued. Witnesses to the murder were paralyzed with shock and fear, unable to comprehend the brutality of what they had just seen. Bouyeri, showing no sign of remorse, calmly walked away from the scene, leaving Van Gogh's body on the street as a macabre testament to his twisted beliefs. The police arrived quickly, and after a brief shootout, Bouyeri was apprehended. Even as he was arrested, he remained defiant, fully convinced that he had acted in accordance with divine will. The murder of Theo van Gogh was more than just an act of violence. It was a calculated assassination, intended to silence a voice that Bouyeri believed had gone too far. The streets of Amsterdam, once a symbol of tolerance and free expression, were now stained with the blood of a man who had paid the ultimate price for his beliefs. The murder of Theo van Gogh was not just the end of a life. It was the beginning of a national reckoning, a moment that forced the Netherlands and the world to confront the dark realities of extremism and the consequences of religious misinterpretation. The murder of Theo van Gogh sent shockwaves through the Netherlands, a nation known for its liberal values and emphasis on free speech. The brutal assassination of a man on the streets of Amsterdam, not far from where he lived and worked, was a stark reminder of the growing tensions within Dutch society. The impact of this crime reverberated far beyond the borders of the Netherlands, igniting debates about free speech, religious tolerance, and the dangers of radicalization across the world. In the immediate aftermath of the murder, there was an outpouring of grief and anger. Vigils were held across the Netherlands as people gathered to mourn the loss of a man who had fiercely defended the right to express controversial ideas. But the sadness was also mixed with fear. Fear that this murder signaled a deeper fracture within Dutch society, one that could no longer be ignored. The Dutch government responded swiftly, launching investigations into extremist networks and tightening security measures. The murder raised urgent questions about the integration of Muslim immigrants, the rise of radical ideologies, and the responsibilities of a multicultural society. It forced the Netherlands to confront the uncomfortable realities of its social fabric, revealing deep-seated divisions and a growing sense of alienation among segments of its population. Internationally, The murder of Theo van Gogh highlighted the global nature of the struggle between free expression and religious extremism. It became a rallying point for advocates of free speech, who saw Van Gogh's death as a dire warning of the dangers of appeasing radical elements. At the same time, it exacerbated tensions between Muslim communities and the broader public, further polarizing societies already grappling with issues of identity, integration, and religious freedom. As for Mohamed Bouyeri, the man responsible for Van Gogh's death, his fate was sealed quickly. Bouyeri was apprehended at the scene of the crime, and during his trial, he showed no remorse. He remained defiant, expressing pride in his actions and a willingness to die for his beliefs. In 2005, Bouyeri was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, a punishment that underscored the severity of his crime and the threat he posed to society. He became a symbol of the dangers of radicalization, a living reminder of how extremist ideologies can lead individuals down a path of violence and destruction. Central to the story of Theo van Gogh's murder is the question of how a religious text, intended as a source of guidance and morality, can be misinterpreted and twisted into a justification for violence. The verse in question, Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 191, has been used by extremists like Mohamed Bouyeri to legitimize their actions. But what does this verse actually mean when understood in its proper context? Islamic scholars are unanimous in their assertion that Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 191, must be interpreted within the historical and situational context in which it was revealed. This case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of proper religious education and the dangers of allowing extremist ideologies to take root. It highlights the need for Muslims and non-Muslims alike to engage with religious texts in a thoughtful and informed manner, to prevent the misuse of scripture as a tool for violence. While the murder of Theo van Gogh was an act of individual extremism, it was also a symptom of broader social, cultural, and historical forces at play in the Netherlands and across Europe. The Netherlands, like many European countries, has long prided itself on its liberal values and commitment to multiculturalism. The 1990s and early 2000s saw a significant influx of immigrants into the Netherlands, many of whom came from countries with vastly different cultural and religious backgrounds. As these communities settled in, they often found themselves at odds with the secular, liberal norms of Dutch society. Issues such as the role of women, freedom of speech, and religious expression became flashpoints in the broader debate over integration and identity. Mohamed Bouyeri's radicalization can be seen as a product of this environment. He was a young man caught between two worlds, neither fully integrated into Dutch society nor entirely at home in his parents' culture. The sense of alienation and resentment he felt was exacerbated by his exposure to radical ideologies that offered a simple, though destructive, solution to his identity crisis. The murder of Theo van Gogh forced the Netherlands to confront these underlying tensions. It sparked a national debate about the limits of free speech, the responsibilities of a multicultural society, and the challenges of integrating diverse communities. It also raised questions about the role of religion in public life and the potential for religious beliefs to be weaponized by those who feel excluded or threatened by the dominant culture. In the broader European context, the murder was part of a larger pattern of rising tensions between Muslim communities and the secular, liberal societies in which they lived. It highlighted the need for a more nuanced approach to integration, one that recognizes the complexities of identity and the importance of creating spaces for meaningful dialogue and understanding. The murder of Theo van Gogh is a tragic example of what can happen when religious beliefs are misinterpreted and used to justify violence. It serves as a reminder of the power of words and ideas and the responsibilities that come with free expression. It also underscores the dangers of alienation and radicalization in an increasingly interconnected and diverse world. As we reflect on this story, we must ask ourselves, how can we prevent such tragedies in the future? How can we ensure that religious teachings are understood in their proper context and not twisted to serve destructive ends? And how can we create societies where people of all backgrounds feel included, respected, and valued? These are the questions we will continue to explore on Faith Misguided. We invite you to join us as we delve deeper into the complex intersections of faith, culture, and identity. Together, we can learn from the past and work towards a future where belief and understanding go hand in hand, and where the line between faith and misguidance is never crossed. Subscribe to our channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and be part of the conversation as we unravel the shadows of belief and seek to illuminate the truth.